That developing story in Queens, dozens of migrants found living in the basement of a furniture store. They were discovered during a building inspection.
And inspectors say they found more than 40 beds inside the store, but when city officials finished counting the people inside, they found 74 asylum seekers and then sent them to migrant shelter in the Bronx.
Well, that border visit comes as the migrant crisis reaches a boiling point here in New York City. Yesterday, inspectors discovered dozens of migrants living in poor conditions in the basement of a furniture store in the Bronx. And it turns out that store is owned by the same man who was housing migrants at another store in Queens. He says he housed the migrants because the city's shelter system is failing them. But the city says he was putting the migrants and his neighbors at risk.
Natasha, Steve, he said his reason is simple: to help them. He says he's prepared to face the consequences in the long run. He hopes this will push the city to do more.
We need change. We're not going to let our people out there sleeping in the streets. It's wrong.
Ibu Sar defending himself after the city shut down 2 makeshift shelters under his name. He admits to housing migrants for $300 each a month, while some are suggesting his practices are exploitive and officials are calling them dangerous. He's sharing his perspective.
I'm not exploiting anybody. Like I said before in the past, we are helping ourselves because they're not helping us. I mean, putting the guys out there in the streets, spending the night in the streets, especially in this cold weather, is more dangerous than, what we're doing right now.
Tight quarters in the basement of a furniture store in South Richmond Hill, Queens. Cell phone video shows beds and migrants, all of them from Africa, squeezed into this room, 2 to a bed. Migrants sleeping in shifts, only 2 bathrooms. Ibu Sar runs the furniture store upstairs and says he's the man behind all of this.
When they started coming to me, telling me their stories, I started helping them. I didn't want to do it, I thought about it twice.
I'm appalled. Ray Pena walks by this Bronx furniture store every day and had no idea. A big vacate order now up after dozens of West African migrants were found living there and were booted yesterday.
I'm sure they come to this country to get a better life, but you got to do it the right way.
The second time in a week, migrants were found living in cramped, unsafe retail locations illegally converted to sleeping quarters. The other in Queens. Beds, e-bikes, scooters, and space heaters all found. The big fire hazard right next to vendor Mazin Ali.
Very unusual, to find some people living in a store,
He says the less than ideal living situation for a month spilling out onto the sidewalk.
Sometimes they put their waste in front of the store and yes.
Of that report. So good morning to you, public advocate. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us this morning.
Good morning. Always a pleasure. Thank you.
All right, let's start with discussing the discovery of these illegal and overcrowded migrant housing units in Queens and also in the Bronx. A lot of people saying this speaks volumes about the city's response and its shelter limit policy. What do you say?
What it does, one, I'm always clear that this situation is untenable without federal assistance and even our governor really stepping in. With that, there's some things we can do better. We did know that the 60-day rule was going to hit hard, in particular how disruptive it was and how it was put into play. So we're not surprised to see this. I do want to say the people who are hit the hardest now are Black migrants who are coming from African countries and Haiti and such. And you saw that here. And we've been trying to sound the alarm in particular for these migrants who don't have any of the infrastructure that's needed to try to make it.
Problem. 177,000 migrants and asylum seekers have found their way to New York City. And I think there's a clear way that we can solve this problem. Number one, we need a real decompression strategy to allow this to go throughout the entire country. And number two, we need to allow people to work. What is more the American dream than the right to work? You cannot prevent that if we want people to take the next step in their journey.
This time last week, we were discussing those debit cards that were being given to the migrants, and then recently finding out this week about those migrants that were living in those stores, allegedly paying rent. What are you hearing on your end?
Well, Gina, a lot of things, and it seems now as if almost every day or every other day, there are more stories coming out about this spillover effect of this migrant crisis which New York City Mayor Eric Adams said would actually doom the city at some point. That's probably the most dismal thing he's ever had to say about this. But in terms of the furniture store, there is a furniture store owner in Queens. He is immigrated here from Senegal about 10 years ago. He had dozens of migrant men from West Africa in his basement, sleeping on cots, sleeping on mattresses, and the floor of his basement, the basement of the furniture store there. Then it turns out...
Second time in 2 days, the NYPD has uncovered an illegal makeshift migrant shelter. Today's discovery in the Bronx follows yesterday's raid in Queens. It now brings the total number of migrants to more than 100, all housed in 2 separate commercial businesses owned, investigators say, by the same man. News 4's Chris Jose live in Fordham tonight, where the eviction, we understand, is underway. Chris?
And Natalie, talk to some of the neighbors out here. They'll tell you this was no secret. Migrants often spotted coming and going every single day. Where the majority of them are going next and how soon, unclear tonight.
The city issued vacate orders after people filed complaints about the hazardous conditions. The mayor's chief of staff was asked if the city's controversial 30-day shelter limit is to blame.
I don't know that I can draw a direct correlation. What I can say is that over 60% of our population have taken steps to move into other places. Some of that means that they are going to move into other locations here in the city, and to the extent that we find out that individuals are living in an unsafe condition, we will do what we have done.
Now making the appeal. If you see something, say something.
Welcome to our channel. If you're new here, don't forget to smash that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest updates and discussions on U.S. immigration topics. Now, let's dive right back into today's topic. Assembly Democrats recently convened in private to discuss the path forward regarding the creation of a new House map for New York. The decision, which carries significant weight, has been outlined to lawmakers as a series of choices. They can either endorse the map proposed by the bipartisan Independent Redistricting Commission, make adjustments to the existing House boundaries, or opt for more substantial changes to the districts. While the map proposed by the Commission was introduced as a bill on Friday and is eligible for consideration, its approval is uncertain. Some Democrats fear potential legal challenges from Republicans if the final map strays from the Commission's proposal. It's still undecided what we're going to do, one legislator revealed the playbook on Sunday. Additionally, there are talks about modifying petitioning rules for House races, potentially reducing the number of signatures required for ballot access. New York holds 6 battleground House seats, making it a pivotal state for both political parties this year. Meanwhile, the number of migrants seeking shelter in New York City is gradually declining, attributed to time limits on stays and a decrease in new arrivals. However, a specific group of migrants, mostly men from West Africa, find themselves in a precarious situation. After their 30-day stays end, they wait for several days outside the St. Bridget Re-Ticketing Center in nearby Tompkins Square Park in Manhattan's East Village, hoping for new shelter assignments. These individuals resort to sleeping on church floors, streets, and subways, enduring harsh conditions. Despite the decreasing migrant population in city shelters, the issue persists and poses challenges for Mayor Eric Adams as he advocates for increased federal aid. Deputy Mayor William Isom emphasized the necessity of time limits for shelter stays, citing the need for people to become self-sufficient. However, the waiting period for new shelter assignments raises questions. The municipal shelter system is reportedly at capacity, and single migrant adults cannot be accommodated in hotels designated for migrant families with children. Assemblymember Harvey Epstein, whose office is near St. Bridget, has sought clarification from Mayor Adams regarding the necessity of the re-ticketing center and the availability of resources for migrants. Despite the challenges, efforts are underway to assist migrants in applying for asylum, temporary protected status, and work authorization. For many migrants, like Abdul Diallo, the ultimate goal is to secure work papers and employment opportunities, allowing them to build a new life in the United States.